Welcome to Hauntings at Dusk, true ghost stories and fiction UK. I'm author Tina Vantyler and I compile books of true ghost stories, plus I write my own paranormal fiction. Each episode I bring you one haunting tale, a true ghost story from my books, one of my fictional tales, or a classic ghost story. So light a candle to chase away those shadows, settle comfortably in your chair and venture with me into the world of the unknown. Today's tale is a true ghost story called Bowled Over. When Verity reads her mother's old letters, buried memories of a terrifying childhood haunting come flooding back. My story is short, but the effect on me has been long-lasting, in a very bad way indeed. My mum died a few years back, and recently her only sister, Auntie Julia, passed away too. Since Auntie Julia had no kids, my best friend Lilibet and I handled the funeral and cleared out her house. Going through Auntie Julia's things on my own one morning, I found box after box of letters. It seemed like she'd kept every one she'd ever received. I was about to throw them out when I noticed some from my mother and had to take a peek. At first, I felt a mixture of curiosity and nostalgia as I began reading. But soon, sitting cross-legged on Auntie Julia's bedroom floor, I couldn't stop crying. Mum wrote a lot about her problems with my dad. I knew they didn't get on. I'm an only child and they divorced when I was young. But learning the details was hard. But it was a different set of revelations that truly shook me to my core. In later letters, my mother wrote about a presence, a spirit, haunting the house in Stoke-on-Trent where I spent my early childhood. As I read, I felt more and more uneasy, like an old fear was waking up. It's quite cathartic for me to share my story and some bits from the letters. I'll leave out the everyday stuff that's not about the hauntings. Mum, Dad and I moved into the 3-bedroom Stoke house when I was nearly 4, just after Christmas. Here's Mum's first letter, 18th of April. Julia, we've been in this house 3 months and already I'm scared to be alone here. It never gets warm upstairs, even with all the radiators full blast. Last night I woke to the sound of someone walking along the landing. Lewis was fast asleep beside me. When I opened the door, the footsteps stopped, but I swear a shadow darted around the corner to the stairs. Lewis says I'm imagining things, but I know what I saw. 30th of April. It means so much to me that you understand and don't think I'm nuts. The incidents are becoming more frequent. A few days ago I saw a tall shadow outside Verity's room while she was napping. Just for a second. Then it was gone. I nearly dropped the ironing. I went in and she was snoozing, but I couldn't see her teddy, the big one she always sleeps with. Eventually I found it on top of the wardrobe at the back. There's no way she could have thrown it up there herself. And I've heard the footsteps 3 more times. 11th of May. Yes, it's possible, as you say, that Lewis could have put the teddy on the wardrobe for a joke. I asked him and he laughed and told me not to make stupid accusations. But it's not funny. And how could a pile of her storybooks end up under her bed with the pages cut out? Lewis said Verity must have done that herself, but she can't use grown-up scissors, and he knows that. I'm scared. What if it's not safe for our girl? The next few letters said the house was quiet and Mum and my dad were getting on well enough. Then, 15th of July. Your visit was such a comfort, but I'd really like you to come again as soon as you can because the worst thing so far happened yesterday evening and Lewis is no help. He was downstairs watching TV and I was drying myself in our room after a shower when I heard a noise like a drawn-out groan on the landing. Thinking Verity was out of bed, I went outside to scold her and there, in front of her door a few feet away, was a man in a dark suit wearing a black bowler hat, like an old-fashioned city gent. His face was ashen and skinny, and he looked dead. I screamed, and the man turned and walked straight through Verity's closed door. Of course I went in after him, although I was very frightened. I couldn't leave my baby alone with that. The room was empty and Verity was asleep, clutching a teddy. Lewis didn't come upstairs to see what was wrong. It was at this point in my reading that I laid the letters on the carpet. A feeling of dread had been building in me, and I hadn't been sure why. But now, with the description of the man, and Mum saying he went into my room, long-buried memories began to surface. It was as if a dam in my mind had broken, releasing a flood of forgotten memories. The black suit and bowler hat, the thin face, the colour of ash. Mum hadn't mentioned the apparition's eyes, but she didn't need to. I would awaken with a start some nights. I never knew when to expect him, to find the man standing over me, staring down. I'd open my eyes and they'd meet his, but they were shrivelled somehow in the sockets, sunken into his skull. Unlike Mum, I couldn't yell. I just had to lie there in the dark while he stared. Eventually he'd move. Now I'd say flitted to my door and melt through it, leaving me frozen with horror on my bed. Oddly, in the morning I'd forgotten about the man until his next appearance. I guess I pushed these things out of my head as a child because they were too scary to remember. But I have one very vivid memory. One night I jolted awake and there he was, staring with those dead, shrivelled eyes. But this time I noticed my dolls and teddies on my shelf, and it gave me courage that my friends were watching. So I opened my lips to scream and, I remember this so well, the man quickly leaned down and clamped a soft, grey, cold palm over my mouth. Those awful eyes, like rotten walnuts, were a foot from mine, and with his other hand he held the bowler hat on his head so it wouldn't fall onto me. I sank my teeth into the hand and, when he lifted it, I leapt up, burst into my parents' room and jumped on the bed. Mum was alone. Dad had started sleeping on the sofa and awake, reading a book. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" she asked, cuddling me to her. "There's a man in my room," I shouted, "in a round hat. He comes most nights, but this time he put his hand on my face." Reading those letters, I felt not only the dread of that time in my stomach, but also fury at my mother. Because she said, "Verity, there is no man in your room. You can sleep here tonight, then it's back to your own bed tomorrow." I don't think the man came much after that, and, before the end of the year, Dad left Mum and I moved into a small flat with her. But I became a very nervous child and grew into an anxious, cautious adult. Within a few years, Dad had a new lady. We're in touch, but not close, and I certainly wouldn't bring this episode up with him. I have no idea who the man in the hat was, and why his visits petered out. I understand Mum probably pretended the man in the bowler hat didn't exist to protect me. But she put me back in that bedroom alone, which was unkind. And I believe you should be honest with kids, as her lie, as I now know it to be, left me doubting my own experiences. Ever since I found the letters, I've been having nightmares. I'm a tall, physically fit woman, but in the bad dreams I'm small and defenceless in my bed in the old house. The door is in a different position, ahead rather than at the foot of the bed. A dense, black mass drifts through the door, but, before it can take shape, I wake myself up. Mum's letters have profoundly affected my life. I found myself questioning other memories, wondering what else I might have forgotten or misunderstood. The revelation has changed how I see my childhood, my mother, and myself. It's strained my relationships too. I'm hesitant to trust others, and I find myself wondering if they're hiding something from me for my own good. Maybe Mum was wise to keep her experience of the bowler hat man from me after all. What do you think? Thanks for listening to Hauntings at Dusk. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe on your favourite podcast platform. Join me again in 2 weeks for another shiver-inducing supernatural story. New episodes on the first and third Friday of every month.